All right, getting started. Here's a few things I guess I would do if I was getting started out here, wanted to try casting. There's really three periods of the the year. It would be spring, and I like to think of that from opening day up to about 67 degrees. Summer from 67 degrees back down to 67 degrees, and then the fall from 67 down to freeze up. And I guess, early on you want to look where they're spawning, and they'll slowly move out. Now, not every fish is going to move out of the bays. They can live where they want. They're going to be around food. I like trying inside weed lines to start the mornings, and I like to move my way out. And I do what I call the weave out there when I do cast, and that would be to start where I'd have some ideas there may be some fish, some inlets, some weed beds or whatever. And what I'll do is I'll usually go out in about 3 or 4 foot of water, and in the springtime, and I'll cast, and I'll do about 200 yards, and then I'll go out. And I'll go out till 3 or 4 feet, and then I'll weave my way back, and then I'll go out to 5 or 6 feet, and then I'll weave my way back, casting that way, and I can slowly move around with baits. Now, generally, depending on the time of year, I try to use baits that I can cover some water, because there's a lot of room. Now, currents and break lines. What's beautiful around here is with the river systems, you can always find, if you can find the walleyes, there's usually suckers in there, and there should be a population of muskies somewhere around it. Same thing with white bass. Right now in the river there, as the white bass come in, there's going to be a lot of fish around those break lines, around the weed beds, around the islands, and so those are all good places to start. Dirt lines, phenomenal. If I like fishing right as it's getting dirty, not the real dirty stuff, not the clean stuff, the in between. But I've caught them all over. So those are some places to start. One thing about fishing before the season, since I've heard people do that, and in a lot of states they have open seasons because they have a put and take fishery where the fish are not going to reproduce. So they stock the fish, they don't reproduce, and people catch them and put them back. Here you don't have that. This is all natural reproduction. So if you meet people that do that, it's probably a good thing for a Muskies Inc. guy to say, this is probably not a good idea, because if you screw up the spawn of one fish, that could be anywhere from 500 to, you never know, 20,000 eggs that he's screwing up. So I strongly, if you know people that might try to do that, it's probably not the best idea for the fishery. Figure eights and triggering fish. Mostly, they call it a figure eight. A lot of times now they do what they call a figure O. And the deal is that the bigger fish need a lot of room to turn. So what's usually best is you bring the bait in, make a big circle. And what I like to do is, if I see them a ways away, I try to get my rod tip down in the water. If I can get my reel down, maybe that far, and I'll speed it up coming at the boat. And then I'll swing it way up, I don't want to swing it up coming at the boat, because he may look up there. It may spook him. You never know. He may not care. But every fish can be a little different. So he comes swinging in, swing it way up, and then come back down. And then just go around. And if he's going to take it, he's probably going to be up there. He's probably going to be gulping at it. He's probably going to take it in a turn. But if he's real inactive, where he's staying way away, and he's staying maybe a foot or two behind the bait, and he doesn't look like he's aggressive at all, you can get down where your reel is right in the water or right above the water, and just figure eight and figure eight. Now, if you got a partner there, it's always a good thing. If he's not that interested in your bait, tell your buddy, hey, pitch in here. And have him see another bait, rip it through, and sometimes that'll do it. And sometimes there's nothing you can do. They just come in and they just follow around, and you got to poke them to get rid of them. Tell them, get out of here, you jerk-offs. Yeah, so you sort of read the fish on that one, and I would have to say if I've had a lot of crazy stuff happen on fish. I've hit fish 21 times around was my record down on Webster Lake. 21 times around and pinned a fish. I think it's probably some of the most exciting thing in the world is when you have a fish that you don't see hit a figure eight, you know, at boat side. It usually gets you shaking for a good while. I've smashed my knuckles quite a few times, bent bucktails in half, and it's good times. But there's a lot of lakes that the figure eight's just deadly, and then you gotta try it every time you cast. Try a figure eight, and you never know which way they might come. Too, there's a lot of guys. I've heard of guys coming in doing a figure eight here. The fish comes under the boat, takes the rod and reel. Bye, you know. So, you know, hold on, do the figure eight, and be ready, you know, if there's any time. They used to always say that 80% of your hits will be either the first 10 feet or the last 10 feet. So I always thought, well, I'll just cast 20 feet. That only makes sense. But that's why it took me 6 years to get associates, you know. But, all right. Steady or quicken the pace up. I don't think you ever want to do. They got a thing they call a death rise, and sometimes when you're bringing your baits in, you can just let it rise up. But don't ever. I don't think it's a good idea to do that right next to the boat. Do it when it's just out a little ways from the boat. But usually coming into the boat, especially with the dogs and joes, if the fish are pretty pressured, I like to speed it up real fast and make a big rip around, and they'll catch it if they want it. They'll catch it. The trollers know that. Dolson dance, the smack, new look. We talked about that in the 2-minute 8. One time I was fishing down there at Webster Lake. The fish were all over the place. We couldn't get anything to go. And there's a buddy of mine, Che Dolson. I was fishing with Mark Merritt, and he was the guide there that sort of put them on the map down there. And this Che Dolson was another guy. We saw this guy figure eighting, and then he started ripping it around the surface. And I looked at my buddy Merritt. I said, look at Che's got some real winners on that boat, you know. And we were laughing, you know, and not more than 5 minutes later, they did it again and smoked a fish right next to us. And this Che Dolson yells over, he goes, "That's a Dolson dance, boys." And so I never want to forget that, you know, when I bring stuff in, if I get something going and I don't think he's going to go, I try the Dolson dance. And some fisheries will, you know, the habits of the fish will change. You know, sometimes you get them on the figure eight, sometimes you get them out at the end. Sometimes they want a long figure eight, sometimes they want a fast one. Sometimes they, I guess, wanted the Dolson dance down there. So that was that. Once Tina is on, Tina would be the big fish. Bury back, walker, and head down. Bury back, when you're coming around with your figure eight, bringing it around, if he eats it going this way, bury back into it. So you're dragging all the hooks right back down into the side. You always want to, if you can, bury back into the corner of his mouth. Then you can start walking him around the boat, because obviously the net's probably not ready. You can start walking him around the boat, maybe even loosen the drag a little bit if you got that presence of mind, if he doesn't rip some line off. And then the other thing is, anytime I hook up a fish, I always watch those, like the bass guys always keep their rods in the water. So I always try to keep my rod tip down. You know, I never want to try to say, "Hey, come on out of the water and jump." You know, that's not what I try to do. I try to keep the head of that fish down deep.